Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, or you are tuned into the March 10th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are tuned in on IG Live. Make sure you go over to YouTube, especially with the video that I'm about to play, probably in the next like 5 or 10 minutes. You definitely want to see it so you can comment on it. But shout out to y'all on IG. Props to those of you who are watching on Facebook Live. Definitely appreciate you. And as always, props to those who are tuned in on YouTube. I might be a little bit away from my monetization goal. You gotta put stuff out the back. Oh, this is my phone that's in the way. I'm trying to figure out what's in the way right now. You know, I get easily distracted. My ADHD be running up on me. So listen, we got a dope show on tap for you today. First and foremost, we're going to have this Coming to America conversation and some specific things. Well, one specific thing that I do want to highlight from the movie, so stay tuned for that. And then we also going to be asking and hopefully answering the question, did Swizz Beatz and Timbaland sell out by selling verzuz? So listen, let's get to the business, man. Let's get to the business. So I know yesterday I teased that I was going to be talking about Coming to America. I'm gonna give you a super quick review, right? I'm gonna give you a super quick review or Coming to America. It just was. It was something that I watched for about an hour and 40 minutes. I laughed maybe 1.725 times throughout the course of that. That's not my type of humor, right? I think at the age of 37, I've developed this. Damn, I don't even want to say it. I was about to say a sophisticated palate when it when it comes to comedy. And then if they start asking me people that I like, you'll be like, them white folk done got to you. So I'm not going to say that. But I'll say just that slapstick humor is not necessarily my cup of tea when it comes to comedy. That's why when people have this Kevin Hart being hilarious, like he's funny, like he's Nick Cannon-esque, I say no, because again, it's that slapstick. I got to go above and beyond it, and then we get to the joke telling. I'm not necessarily a fan of any of his jokes that have somehow gone viral. I don't know what that says about people, right? When it comes to his comedy, but hey, it's just not necessarily for me. I mean, the plot was what it was. It was, I guess, paying homage to the original Coming to America, right? Some of the similar themes with Prince Hakeem and Lisa, and then his son, I think his son name was Master or something like that. And the person that he adored, it wasn't the person who in the arranged marriage that would be picked for, or something, or vice versa with that woman actually. Again, clearly you see that I don't think too highly of it. I'm not going to go out of my way to critique and be uber critical. That's one of the things that I saw over the weekend. It was just like everybody had to give their hard position on Coming to America. It's just like, yo, I hated it. It was trash. It was garbage. And then you had people saying, yo, it was amazing. It was crazy. It's one of the best comedies ever. And I'm looking at both of them, like, yo, relax. Like, why do we feel compelled to have to do that? I know we're in this age of social media where we have to give our opinions. Hence, what I'm doing right here, right, offering my opinions up on various things. But I get fake paid to do this. But no, we always got to take the social media super quick to give our immediate visceral reaction to something that we just watch. Especially when it comes to black films. I don't know what they do on white Twitter, white Facebook, white Instagram. Maybe they do the same thing. But I know for black folk, we have to get on and start tweeting up a storm. We got to let our feelings be known. And maybe I've seen it with this movie. And I harken back to when I had that discussion with Sylvie about Sylvie's Love and how initially I didn't like it, but I needed to take time to sit with it and think about what even my own expectations were. And I think that's part of it. People be like, yo, I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. And then you're like, what's your expectations? I mean, it was supposed to be better than the first John, right? Because it's a sequel. And it's like, Yeah, again, what were your expectations? We can't necessarily define what our expectations are when it comes to things. We just know how we feel emotionally and physiologically when it comes to it. And that's like every situation. But just like we talk about as therapists, sometimes you got to sit with that feeling. Understand what that feeling is, where it comes from. Were you expecting it to be Home Alone 2? I still don't think it was ever a sequel to an original film that was amazing as Home Alone 2. It was the same premise. He got lost somewhere else, right? He got lost somewhere else, but it was just so well done. It was just so well done. And so in that case, I say Home Alone 2 was definitely better than Home Alone 1. I'm trying to think of something else where there's sequels that are better. Maybe we would say Rocky. Rocky 2. Definitely can't say Beverly Hills Cop. Because Beverly Hills Cop 1 was the best one. I'm maybe no, not Toy Story 2. No Jurassic Park. Bad Boys 2 maybe. Marcel says Rocky 2. That's what I was thinking. Rocky 2. But then I thought Rocky 2 was better. I'm not going to say Rocky 3. I enjoyed Rocky 3 more, but Rocky 2 was better. The Godfather 2, even though I thought both of the Godfathers were awful, and I have no idea why it's classic cinema. Again, Bad Boys. It was cool. It was cool. I think once we know what the theme is going to be when it comes to these movies, all right, now how can you be creative to make it stand out and make me different? For me, Bad Boys 2 didn't do that. Like I said, Home Alone 2, set the precedent. And I don't think it's been matched since. Kill Bill. Kyron says Kill Bill. I haven't seen Kill Bill 1. I haven't seen Kill Bill 2. I couldn't tell you if it's 4 Kill Bills. Never saw Blade. Never saw Blade 1. Never saw Blade 2. I never saw the trilogy. Matrix 2, Matrix 7. Boys in the Hood. Boys in the Hood 2. Never, never saw those. You know what I mean? So I can't necessarily speak to them. Janetta got kids, so she says Toy Story 3 and 4 were better. Again, you got the babies. And so you all up in the Toy Story. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just, people don't know what their expectations were. And again, your visceral reaction could definitely be your overall thoughts on it. But I tell people, listen, sit with it, man. Sit with it and understand it, because maybe it's not as bad as your initial post has it out to be. Right? I looked at him as paying homage to the original. You see all the different actors from the past. You saw the twin rapping girls where everybody wanted to fill their breasts, or was it chest? One of them, right? We saw Sex or Chocolate. We saw the preacher. We saw the barbershop folk. We saw everybody. Cleo McDowell. It's always good seeing James Evans. He done had a whole bunch of roles, but he will forever be James Evans. Right? Who was missing was Just Let Your Soul Glow. Like, we didn't see him. Eric LaSalle. And matter of fact, I haven't seen Eric LaSalle since what was that movie on HBO about the basketball? Earl Manigault. I haven't seen him since Rebound, the movie, and that was maybe about 20 years ago. And also the sister, Lisa's sister, she wasn't in it. Right? And we know what the mom passed away, so God bless the dead for sure. She actually passed away like within a few years of that film. But yeah, I don't know what people were really expecting from the film. But you know what I wasn't expecting? What I wasn't expecting was this.
Appropriate mate. She offered me some of her ceremonial herbs. Then, if memory serves, a wild boar burst into the room. He came and jumped into my lap, and then began to run me, and run me, and run me, and run me.
And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna say that again, and then I'm gonna take this original picture down so y'all can actually see what the video is. So like I said, when I watched this movie, I didn't have crazy expectations for it. I thought they were just paying homage. But again, what I wasn't expecting was this.
Appropriate mate. She offered me some of her ceremonial herbs. Then, if memory serves, a wild boar burst into the room. It came and jumped into my lap, and then it began to ram me, and ram me, and ram me, and ram me, and ram me.
What I didn't imagine that I would see would be Prince Akeem, played by Eddie Murphy, be date raped by Leslie Jones. Matter of fact, let's reverse that. Because when we're having this conversation about sexual assault, we tend to put the victim in the beginning, right? So where the focus is on the victim slash survivor, and not on the perpetrator. So let me try that again. What I wasn't expecting was to see Leslie Jones' character drug and rape Prince Akeem, aka Eddie Murphy. And you know what? When I was watching it, I didn't even pay it any mind. I wasn't necessarily invested in the film. It wasn't until I had a conversation with the good brother Al Latif Farmer yesterday when he was like, yo, that non-consent scene was crazy. And I was like, yo, I saw it. I didn't process it at all and kept it moving. And this is exactly what the problem is. Because I know if that was a black woman, if that was a woman, if that was a person who identifies as a woman being forcefully given drugs and being taken advantage of sexually, I would have been outraged. Moviegoers would have been outraged. There would have been 1,000 think pieces taking place talking about the promotion of rape culture, of rape, of a sexual assault of a woman in the Me Too era. You would have saw hashtag Me Too everywhere. You would have saw brave survivors stepping up, speaking, telling their stories of being date raped. You would have saw asking for the cancellation of Eddie Murphy, of Arsenio Hall, aka Semi, who set up the rape, who facilitated a rape to take place. You would have saw the cancellation of the franchise. You wouldn't see Coming to America on network television. They're going to take it off streaming networks. Why? Because Eddie Murphy, and they're not going to say Prince Hakeem, they're going to say Eddie Murphy simulated raping Leslie Jones. Man rapes woman. Black man rapes black woman. But yet, we don't see that outrage right now. Right? And as I said, I glossed over it. Whether I was invested in the film or not, that shouldn't have took away from me recognizing what it is that I was watching, what was being called entertainment, what was supposed to be a comedic performance. As you saw Eddie say, he said she gave me some of her substance. Right? He was drugged. He had no recollection of this taking place. Then the wild bull got on me. Bull, whatever he said, got on me. And I hate to be the one that says, think about this situation in reverse. I hate to be the what if it was a woman. But in situations like this, where the response, where the outrage, where the backlash has been minimal, nobody's asked for that scene to be taken out the film. They can take it out. It's not like it's going to improve or hurt the quality of a film that's already what it is, dry. Right? And so I took to social media and I posted about it, and I see people saying, what happened? What you talking about? And I'm like, exactly. Because when it comes to men being victims / survivors of sexual assault, we don't have that conversation. We talk about men as being perpetrators, as being villains, of being conquerors. Those who can't control their lustful feelings. Right? Wouldn't that be the conversation in every think piece? Alyssa Milano would have came up from whatever hole she in, talking about #MeToo. But we don't have this conversation about men being assaulted with that same veracity. I saw a post yesterday of one of the woke brothers, right? Talking about you can't blame women for safe spaces, for not having safe spaces. You have to blame the patriarchy, white supremacy. It's like, yeah, we know that, brother. And so when we having this conversation on why the lack of conversation when it comes to men being assaulted, we have to blame other men. That's a given. That's a given. But that can't be the end of the conversation. And so often that becomes the end of the conversation where it's like, well, it's you gotta blame men. It's just like, all right, cool, put that to the side. What are we doing? What are we saying? How are we using our voices to talk about this? Who's going to speak up and say something? I was on the route in Very Smart Brothers Bull. Panama Jackson has his list of 10 takeaways he had from coming to America. And he had a super passive line about the plot, including Prince Hakeem being raped somewhat. And it was such passive language to where, again, it would be a think piece if it was somebody else. If it was not even somebody else, if it was a woman. 1,000 words easy. But we can't even get the definitive, the assertive and necessary voice from another brother, no less. Even if this is fiction. And the question is, how do we change that? Somebody else posted about, I didn't watch the series Bridgerton or nothing, because like the royal said yesterday about the royal families and all that, I'm cool on that. No interest. Right? But they say in season 1, episode 6, that another man was sexually assaulted. I mean, the mere fact you're able to go specifically to the scene and to the act of where it happened. But unfortunately, all I saw from this film was folk praising the beauty of that light-skinned brother. Right? That's all I saw from that. And praising Shonda Rhimes and how brilliant she is, which she is. A brilliant mind. But I didn't hear anything about that. You know, when we juxtapose this with other films where assaults and things have taken place, where aggressiveness perpetrated by a man against a woman receives the response that it deserves. And so with this, it was a fail. It was a fail by Eddie. It was a fail by Leslie Jones for agreeing to be a part of this. Arsenio Hall. Anybody who watched that during post-production and not say a word. Yes, we know that women are more likely to be victims and are likely to be victims of a sexual assault than a man. And so where we have a maybe 1 in 3, 1 in 4 chance here, we have a 1 in 7, 1 in 8, 1 in 9 chance here. But that's still 1, right? And that's enough. That's enough. It's no different than yesterday when I talked about the importance of saying that Biggie was murdered, that he was assassinated, and he didn't just pass away. We need to be loud. We need to be vocal about that. As to, we need to be vocal about this as well. Jasmine says, has comedy gone too far or audience is becoming too sensitive? No, I wouldn't say comedy has gone too far. Comedy has been what it always is. I like comedic jokes that push the envelope. Shoot, some of my favorite comedians, Paul Mooney. He pushed the boundaries and then goes beyond it. Super insensitive. Is it even necessarily, is it necessary? That will have some question as well. Right? But I think what makes this different is this is a film. Right? It was an already poorly written film. A poorly written film and a scene that was pretty much unnecessary. They say any sex scene that you put into a movie is unnecessary. But then to put in a rape scene, and I think that's where we talk about what's the line of demarcation for comedians. The line that they can cross or cannot cross. I don't necessarily... if there have been comedians who've made jokes about rape, forcible rape, being drugged and raped, I can't necessarily think of any. But society censors them. We look at Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle continues to make tens of millions of dollars, but he has a blind spot. And that's the LGBTQ plus community. That's women. He has a blind spot and is glaring for as funny as he is. And so we are in a different day and age. You can't just say anything about your mouth and there not be consequences. However, in this situation, there tends to continuously be no consequences when we talk about men. Everybody knows about what took place at Michigan State with Dr. Nasser, who ended up dying by suicide after sexually assaulting hundreds of women, including Olympic champions. But nobody talks about the pending lawsuit with Ohio State, where hundreds of men were sexually assaulted by a doctor, men on the wrestling team. How a member of office participated, had knowledge of this back in the 90s, and still squashed it. Right? Hence the reason why this might be the first time you're hearing about it. And so, yeah, for me, it was just negligence. It was unfortunate. Now, if I thought I didn't have a reason not to watch the movie ever again, they gave it to me. Right? They gave it to me because I can't sit and watch that. Not as a man, not as a father of a daughter, and not as a human being. There's nothing about rape that's funny. Hence the reason why you don't necessarily see comedians talk about that. Unless it's in a way of a Paul Mooney talking about enslaved folk, talking about our experience, right? That's another thing to it. That's our experience. If we talk about enslavement and Thomas Jefferson raping the sister, this isn't their experience. Because if it was their experience, I highly doubt that they would do it. If Leslie Jones was raped, date raped, drugged and raped, she's not letting this go down. If this happened to Eddie Murphy, or if this happened to one of Eddie Murphy's daughters, not only would this scene be deleted, but I'm sure somebody would lose their job. Right? But hey, that's just my thoughts on that. So listen, man, we're gonna keep the party going. We're gonna get into this brief conversation on, as I try to pull up my Zoom, because this joint be tripping. I don't want it to cut off on me like it did yesterday. And it made the screen smaller. That's beautiful. So bear with me. Let's try to get this. It's always something, man. They don't want me to have a dope show today, but we still gonna rock with it anyway. All right, there we go, man. We back like we never left. So I sat and I was scrolling on Instagram, and it came across my timeline that Timbaland and Swizzy sold Verzuz to the network Triller, and so Triller has a app that's in competition with TikTok. So they're trying to acquire content so they can stay in this race. They also produced the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. fight and that Nate Robinson punch out that we all saw. Hopefully Nate is doing all right. So in watching this, in reading rather, in reading this deal, I just got thrown off for a second. My bad. These notifications keep coming in. I guess people commenting on this Eddie Murphy joint on my Facebook post. So when I first saw this deal, that Verzuz was sold to Triller, I immediately was like, WTF. I said WTF because here we go again. Black folk getting the opportunity to get paid off black content that they own and selling it off to the white man for the bottom dollar. And it's like we see this time and time and time again. And it's going to be called black excellence. It's going to be called generational wealth. Again, monetarily, yes, it's a great deal. I'm not in a position to be able to say what I would or would not do in that. Hopefully I will recognize that if we are talking about generational wealth, we're also talking about inheritance, right? Versus TV is something that can be passed on from generation to generation. That can stay in the family. Why can't that be the WWF? Vince McMahon not giving that up. He's not selling that off to nobody. And even if he did, white folks still own a whole lot more than we do. Now listen, it's noble that they get a little, I'm not going to say a little, it says they become large shareholders in the Triller network. They're shareholders. They don't run the company. They can be ousted. Right? They can be ousted. They can have an opinion and they can make their opinion. And the owner, the CEO, be like, word, all right, I'm going to take that under advisement. That's what you get. You get take that under advisement. But hey, you got some large shares. You get to oversee the versus management team. Cool. Cool. You also give a portion of their equity to everybody who came on to versus. So that's D'Angelo, that's RZA, that's DJ Premier, that's Beanie Man, and all those folk. T-Pain. That's dope. But think about it. They give you 7. You take 3 and give it to everybody else. So you left with 4. Why'd you have to give some of your shares up? Or you just doing it out the kindness of your heart? That wasn't something that they said. And clearly it's not going to be something that they said. There's something that how it's like a birthday present, I guess, a gift for folk participating on verses, those artists who came through. Cool, I get it. Or maybe you could have argued for them to give more, right? So if you're going to give me 7, give them 2. Y'all got the rest. And again, I'm a social worker. I'm not a math whiz, right? So we're not trying to make this match up mathematically. But I just said, and that was my initial response. I see Charlemagne saying those who can, and those who can't will exist. And I'm like, man, he another one. When we talk about people who are available to the highest bidder. I was heartbroken when I was sitting there watching a Burger King commercial. And I hear the guy say, "Real G's move in silence like sourdough." And I said, wait, hold up. I heard that line before. But it was with a beat, it was rapped, and it sounded much doper. And then I had to remember, that's a Lil Wayne line. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. One of the greatest hip hop lyrics ever. He sold his masters. 100% of them. That's it for him. He didn't listen to what Prince said. Again, we talking about ownership. If we talking about ownership, let's talk about ownership. Not just renting to buy and then sell. Because again, what's going to be had that's left? What's going to be left? And this is just a mindset that LLC Twitter and LLC Instagram have adopted, right? It's just like, oh, got to get that coin. And again, it'll be billed as black excellence, but it doesn't talk about talk about community. Right? I'm looking at the comments. It says, in business, always have an exit plan. You start a business to sell it or better. You don't necessarily start a business to sell it or better. Right? Especially if you're in a community that doesn't necessarily have much. Yeah, sure, you as a whole, you have it. But why and go sell it to this white-facing company? It wasn't nobody black you was able to sell it to? There's nobody out here, a black tech, right? With the same type of comparable bread? Exactly. We're not in those positions. We understand what the wealth gap is. And so sure, yes, you can buy anything and sell it. But if we're talking about community, if we're talking about ownership, not just trying to flip something. Because if we're talking about black gentrifiers, we can talk about black gentrifiers too. They no different than white gentrifiers who come in the hood, buy a house for the low, and then flip it to some white folk. Or flip it for black folk for 2-3 times its value. Again, as if we talking about community. I talked about that, and so it comes from it, the equity, the shares that those individuals like D'Angelo that they get. That all comes from the shares that the large shares that Timbaland and Swizz got. Right? They could have said, "Yo, put some more in this, and so I can give it out here." But again, do you own? Right? You're an employee at this point, and there's nothing wrong with being an employee. But we're so quick to sell things off. Look at Jay and Title. And look who we're selling it off to. Jay selling Title. Oh, everybody gets like a couple $1,000,000. Cool, that's short sighted. What's long term? Or even keeping the companies within the community. So, let me see what else. I wouldn't even. I mean, I don't know if I could call what's the name culture vultures. If we talking about, if we talking about Swizz and them, I mean they've made some contributions, right? They've made some contributions. One could argue that they could potentially be considered culture vultures. Yeah, I guess just like black gentrifiers, right? Like it's not endemic to just white folk. I think it's more disheartening when we do it, because we say, "What's the end goal?" And I guess that would be my question to Swizz into Timbaland. Like, what exactly is your end goal? Is it just to acquire a whole bunch of money and to make sure your generations are set? Yeah, that happens. That's cool. You're there. Are you trying to get some people in your circle? And again, I don't want to minimize the influence that they've had within their respective careers. But they playing with different money now. And just the fact that black creatives stay having their ideas stolen without proper compensation. I saw that the girl who did what's this joint? The Renegade joint. You know what I mean? They had her on this Son of a Nation show on ABC. Cool. She's professionally trained dancer. Cool. That white girl who took the dance, do it on a timer. She $100 millionaire, right? She $100 millionaire. So they're stealing our ideas. They're stealing our creative juices. So then they can further profit. Trilla bought this so they can continue to go back and forth with TikTok, an Asian-owned company. It's like, oh, y'all niggas gonna sell that, man. Let me get that about you. Y'all don't know what y'all doing with that. Again, it's so many of these people that we call the black elite. It makes you question. It makes y'all question. Because I've already had my mind made up. Like what their true intentions is. One, what their true intentions are. And two, do they recognize the harm that they're causing a community? And they're often contradicting themselves because their actions are the direct opposite of what it is that they're saying. So, I don't know. I'm no mortal man. I think Title and Square was a good move. Long term, it's a way to give artists more financial freedom and ways to make money independently. Square is becoming a powerful bank. I hear you. Why can't you? Why you can partner with Square, right? You can partner with Square, or you can run Title as an independent entity. That's good enough. That's what I'm talking about. Like, and I'm not saying you, Kai. You know what I mean? But we looking at ways to get the highest top dollar for stuff. And it's like, yo, why wasn't this title move good enough? It's sustaining everybody. All things being considered, right? Because we know companies be taking losses and all that. But still, it's a valid platform. Why not put all of our attention to building it up? We tripled this, quadrupled this value from when it first came out. At what point do you say, yeah, I don't think it's going to grow no more, so let me get rid of it? Like, if anything, you think their egos would say, let me continue building this to get it to an apex. If I could do this in only 4 years, I imagine what I can do in 10. Imagine, matter of fact, here, Bleak, you run this. Let's see what you could do in 10, Bleak. All right, we got you, Bleak. We see you. All right, matter of fact, now it's time to pass off. Let's pass off to young Chris. Let's pass this down. If it flops, all right. It's the game. Then if you start to notice the decline, then yeah, you get out fast and sell it. But this notion of black excellence, black wealth, let's go up in the community, let's buy back the block so we can then sell the block to the highest bidder. If y'all want to go buy a crib, y'all should have been buying them cribs near the Coltrane house, where they built an entire one of them white people lofts that they paid $3,000 for, that now blocks the portrait of Coltrane. Right? You don't see Zuckerberg selling it. Boy, Jack Dorsey owned Twitter. You don't see him off in Twitter. They trying to bring more stuff in. I don't know. It's the mindset. You know what I'm saying? It's the mindset that's ill. I don't know. Listen, this edible kicking in. So I'm gonna holla at y'all next Monday. Appreciate you for coming through. Peace.